your host, Pooja RV. And in today's episode, we have Joshua Morshead, who is Managing Director at EPD Hub, a platform helping manufacturers create environmental product declarations faster and at scale. So, his work is enabling businesses to better understand, measure, and communicate their environmental impact. So, making sustainability more transparent and actionable. Welcome, Joshua.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for taking the time for me.
Yes, indeed. We are glad to have you here for today for the show. And Joshua, could you please introduce yourself and tell the origin of the APD Hub as well?
Sure. So
Yeah.
I think you've done a great job already. I'm the managing director of EPD Hub. We are a program operator, which means that we are essentially verifying the EPD results that manufacturers are calculating to declare the environmental impact of their products. So they do the calculation, or a consultant does it for them. And then they come to us and we do a second, third party check, basically. So we verify everything that they've calculated. We look at the methodology and their calculations. We look at the product category rules that they've worked against and the standards. And when we are satisfied that they have followed all the rules and they've done a good and accurate calculation, we put our stamp of approval on there. We publish that into our database. It also gets promoted into the Eco Platform database. And that's when the customers can receive that EPD as an architect who is designing a building. They can design the building based on the EPDs that they've received. So that's essentially where we're helping, especially the construction sector, to move towards a more sustainable approach going forward. And so, yeah, I've been here for 2 months now and essentially just developing a new approach to launching a new commercial strategy going forward. So up until March this year, we have been a part of One Click LCA, which is an LCA software, and we have since March been a separate legal entity, which means that we are now fully independent of One Click LCA, and that means we are what we call software agnostic. We can receive results from any software and verify them. So my job is to establish all the new partnerships with the new software providers, consulting firms, manufacturers to, essentially find out who we can work with to verify their results. Yeah. Thank you very much for
That's
having me.
great. Yeah, and we are happy as well. And that was a great explanation, I would say, in terms of what we do, or sorry, how you do, and what is the operation strategy behind it. Also, congratulations for making it, let's say, a separate legal entity. Congrats on that. And moving ahead, Joshua, what I'm also curious to understand is like earlier, let's say, when the data, when if we want comparison for, let's say, company to company, the most important key metric would be the financial data for any company to compare, right? Or even to, let's say, to get a grip and understanding of how the company is actually working towards. But now, fast forward 10 years, we see there is this lot of change where climate and environmental data is, reaching the board of directors room, or also impacting or making a shift in terms of how the decisions are made. So my question would be like how critical is this environmental data today? And also if we can narrow it down to like how EPD plays a role in this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you say, for a long time, since the beginning of commercial enterprises, finance data has been the bloodline of companies. It's been the bottom line, the only bottom line to
I agree.
evaluate,
Yeah.
right, how a company is going and if it's profitable or not. That's the only way of evaluating. And with the recent focus on sustainability, we've seen a new bottom line emerging, which is obviously sustainability. And to be more specific, it is the carbon footprint of a company. When we talk about scopes 1, 2, and 3, according to the GHG protocol, that is a carbon footprint of a company. And what we're doing is we're, for the first time, sort of pulling back the screen or to see what is happening behind the scenes at a company to see, are they actually sustainable? And that's where it's actually quite a shock, because even the most profitable, financially stable companies have some of the worst environmental impacts. And we can just look at the oil and gas industry as a classic example. They get a lot of skepticism for their environmental impact, and at the same time, they are very profitable. So the question is, can we meet both bottom lines? Is it possible to detach financial growth from environmental impact, to say that a company can be good for business and be also good for the environment? And in order to get there, we need to have full visibility into both finance and environmental impacts. Now, the financial side is well taken care of because it's an established process. We have, since the beginning of time, been carefully monitoring every dollar and cent that's moving through a company, where it's going from and where it's coming from, where it's going to. And so we have all these systems in place, all the tools and expertise in-house to do that and to track every cent. When we look at the environmental impact, it's in the dark ages, quite literally sometimes, in the sense that we have no systems set up to collect and monitor and evaluate that data. We also have very little expertise to know what to do with that data, even if we did have it. And most critically, we are also lacking the ability to develop scenarios for reducing that impact over time. And that's essentially what it's all about. So the first step is obviously to calculate, what is the current situation? What is today's environmental impact of a company? And then also, to get more specific, we eventually get pointed very squarely into the supply chain of a company, because the dreaded Scope 3 environmental impact is where most of the emissions are coming from. Up to 90% of a company's emissions are Scope 3, which is essentially the goods and services. It comes down to a lot of what they purchase from suppliers, and what they're purchasing is materials which go into their products. And that's where we come down to the Environmental Product Declaration, the EPD. So essentially what we're doing with calculating an EPD is looking at a product, an individual product, and calculating how many emissions are associated with manufacturing that product from beginning to end, from cradle to grave, so the entire footprint. And we are, from EPD Hub, we are essentially just looking at those results and making sure that they're accurate before they go out into the market. Now, when they go out into the market in the form of a nice, verified, published EPD document, they are then being compared by the customers. In this case, it's an architect. So the architect is designing a building and choosing the materials for the building based on the environmental impact of each individual product. Now, if they're looking at, for example, a concrete slab for the foundation, they would be looking at the EPDs from those concrete manufacturers to see, okay, which manufacturer will give me the smallest environmental impact per kilogram of concrete that I use in the foundations. And the only way they can get that information is by looking into the EPDs. And this is where the manufacturers come into competition against each other based on who has the lowest environmental impact. And this is where we have a fantastic race to the bottom, where the manufacturers are now trying to have the most attractive environmental impact, as in the lowest. And that is all declared in the EPD. So what we have for the first time is visibility into the environmental impact of a product, which is then triggering a competition out in the market. We're seeing this especially in public procurement projects and large tenders, but it's also going into the voluntary market, even for private buildings as well. So it's a fantastic sign.
Mhm. And you also mentioned about this comparison part, right? Whenever we compare, let's say, the product, since in this particular case, it will be apple to apple comparison, because as you rightly gave an example also, let's say if we are considering for a slab or per square meter of like what is the requirement, it is more or less similar comparison. So when we have such comparisons, there is also this, let's say, the pedal factor of greenwashing, right? Because whenever we have such greenwashing claims, what usually happens is like more or less the companies might not be fulfilling the all the requirements which have been asked to, or they may be overselling the, let's say, the benefits, or maybe they are also undermining the, let's say, the drawbacks of that particular product. So can you explain us how, as consumer or a person, let's say in this particular case who is in particular of construction industry, can they be wary of such claims and make, let's say, a judicial and ethical decision?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and thank you
Thanks.
for raising that. So
Mm-hmm.
this shadow of greenwashing hangs over the whole topic of sustainability. And let's be fair, I mean, we're coming off the back of like 30 years of blatant greenwashing where the marketing department of most companies was responsible for sustainability, as in just doing a lot of communication about how green we are, but without doing anything. And that is greenwashing. So we're coming off the back of a long history of blatant greenwashing where it was not questioned, it was not declared, it was not externally verified, it was just not requested or asked for by anybody. So the question is now, if we're really serious about sustainability and reducing our environmental impact, then we need to be honest. We need to declare accurate information to the public so that investors and customers and employees can be sure of a company's environmental credentials. And
Mm-hmm.
this is exactly where EPD Hub comes in because we are that third party auditor. So when a company calculates the carbon footprint of its product, for example, they give those results to us, and then we take that and independently verify if those results are accurate. So we look into the model that has been created, the life cycle analysis, essentially the calculation. We look into all the assumptions that they have made along the calculation to make sure that it's realistic and plausible. We look at the background data sets that have been used to calculate based on, and we also look into where the data is coming from. And
Mm-hmm.
we are satisfied with that, then we can put our stamp of approval on there and declare that it is accurate. And that process is very rigorous. It's all about, the process is about iteration cycles. So most of the time, we'll have to send those results back to the customer to say, that's not correct, or we don't think that assumption is realistic, or, that
Mm-hmm.
data set is probably not the right one to be using for that calculation. Or maybe if you say that you're using renewable electricity, do you have certificates to prove that that energy has been sourced from renewable sources? So we put everything under the microscope. Most of the time, we pass it back to the customer to say, please have another go. That's not quite accurate. And only when we're satisfied, then we can put our stamp of approval on there. And it is a very rigorous process. It's time consuming. It adds cost. The whole topic costs money and time and effort and resources. And that's something that I think the industry is really struggling with because the ROI of sustainability is still being proven, and we're still
Mm-hmm.
looking for how does this impact our bottom line? How is this good for business just to have an attractive carbon footprint of our product? And like I was saying before, I think this is starting to prove itself out in the market when the customers are actually requesting more information and preferring some suppliers over others based on their environmental impact. So we're finally seeing this come full circle, but it has taken a long time. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and even on this same topic of sustainability finally hitting the bottom line, which is the finances of a company, I think the recent shift away from sustainability and ESG topics, with the recent political dynamics moving away from sustainability, what that's done, in my opinion, has just pushed the sustainability topic deeper into the local functions of a company. So instead of one central sustainability manager handling this whole topic for the whole company, when that sustainability manager has lost their budget and funding and been removed from the company, that topic has been spread out across procurement, across human resources, across product design, across even the way the finances of the company are structured so that they can avoid taxes like CBAM. So we're seeing actually a shift in the right direction despite the fact that the winds are going against sustainability as a whole.
Yeah, actually, we will come back to CBAC as a topic altogether later. But even before we reach that, I had few questions, let's say, to understand. When we say as the timeline and also the rigorous process, can you help us understand to the listeners who have no literally idea about EPD? Maybe I will just do a bit here. EPD is nothing but environmental product declaration, particularly used for construction industry. Any product or any, let's say, the service or the unit or the electrical fitting, let's say, anything which will be consumed in the construction of a building will have an EPD attached to it, and this is mostly done to do the comparison and also to track the carbon footprint of each and every product. Coming back to this, what will be the contents? Because few days back I read one of the standards which is 21930 for EPD, basic one where A1, A2, A3, A4 and B1, B2 till B7 for the use case scenario, and the last C where we have the demolition and C other waste of that. So now my point is, if you can help us understand what will be a typical timeline for the whole of this process. Let's say your customer has the data, they will come back to you with the LCA and carbon footprint data. How much time will it take? And usually, what are the key components you look for, whether or not this is present in this particular report?
Yeah. So the time frame for creating an EPD from beginning to end is normally around 6 months. So first
Mm-hmm.
of all, as you said, the calculation needs to be done. So the life cycle analysis is completed, and there is an end results report of the carbon footprint of that product and also the other environmental impacts. And so they are prepared as a report and submitted to EPD Hub as a program operator to check if they're correct. And
Mm-hmm.
from that point, we actually are the fastest program operator in the world today. So we have a turnaround time of 2 weeks that we can receive the results, verify them, and publish them. 2 weeks. Most program
Okay.
operators have a turnaround time of 3 to 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge difference. The reason that we're so fast, and the process is the same. Like we check the same things, we verify in the same way according to the same standards, and we publish to the same eco platform and to the same databases. The reason we do that so much faster is because we are digital. So we use
Mm.
digital platform to receive the information from our customers, and then we do a pre-check of the results that have come in. We use artificial intelligence to do a pre-check, and then we also have a manual check by verifiers of the anomalies, the outliers, the weird assumptions, the plausibilities that are not quite realistic. They get pushed to a human verifier to do a final check. And also, if there is any outliers that we need to receive information for the customer from, we also manage that through the platform as well. So our digital platform makes the whole process a lot faster, a lot more streamlined. It keeps all the documentation together. Obviously, we have a human check at the end. In fact, two verifiers do a final quality assurance check before it goes into publishing, just to make sure that there is a strong human element there and to maintain quality. But essentially, the turnaround time is significantly faster. And what it means is that it reduces the time frame for the manufacturer to get their EPD out into the market, especially if they're in the middle of a large public tender where the EPD needs to be ready very quickly, or they might
Yeah,
be losing
because
business.
that was my next question. Because let's say if it is consuming 6 months already, and the construction sector now, I think, are let's say in a faster pace of growth, especially in developing countries. So this timeline, will it not affect when, let's say, if you're choosing a particular product, or because they might see as an let's say hindrance or resistance in terms of coming into the market with respect to products. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, sure. So there is obviously a difficulty to have products recognized, and obviously to have them recognized within the time frame. So a lot of public
Mm,
tenders will be a very short time frame. If the manufacturer does not have all the required documentation, including an EPD, then they'll simply lose the business. So
mm,
what we're trying to do is to see that, yes, if there is a large time frame just to do the calculation, then let's try to speed up the verification process by using the technology that's at our disposal, especially today with the upcoming AI technologies and the tools that's available. It makes sense just to leverage those to try to speed this up and increase the competitive advantage, so that we can get more EPDs out there. Does that
yeah.
answer your question?
Yeah, and also maybe like in terms of understanding, I had a follow-up question because, like, see, for any business, the amount of time included and as well as the bottom line matters a lot. So I was just coming back from this inference, I was trying to understand like sustainability in the starting, as we discussed. Now it is also being, in the limelight where it is quite important. How do we tackle this? Because there is this AI part of it where a lot and lot of usage is required so as to increase the efficiency of the process, or maybe even, let's say, fast pace it, as you are rightly mentioning. And we also have CBAM, which is coming up and talking about, let's say, particularly the construction industry, cement, and as well as steel, which will be, under this radar. So, if we have to understand these aspects in a comprehensive way, what is your opinion on this?
Yeah, I think the bottom line here does come back to financial data, to be absolutely honest. You mentioned
Okay. Mm-hmm.
right? Like you mentioned CBAM, and that is essentially a tax on carbon. So on carbon imports into the EU. And it's not just about a tax, but it could also be essentially putting a carbon price on the trade of goods as well. So between companies as well. So, for example, a green premium on products that cost more because they are more sustainable compared to the generic option. And it's essentially trying to evaluate in monetary terms sustainability and the impact that it has. Both positive by being better for the environment, also in terms of reducing carbon emissions. So what we have is the topic where there is an overlap between environmental impact and financial impact of a company,
Mm-hmm.
and when we can have that, when we can focus on that overlap, that connection, then we can try to hone our strategic focus in on that sweet spot where the company is both sustainable and also profitable and viable. And so what we can do now is that we can say that yes, one product is more like better for the environment, has a lower environmental impact, and therefore it has a higher price in the market. So it's purchased at a premium, and it's also imported into the EU with lower taxes, so that has a
Mm-hmm.
lower tax threshold. And that's essentially two factors, two levers that companies can take advantage of to make this also good for the financial bottom line. And it's, I think, going forward, even internally at companies, to help companies to make decisions about where to allocate resources across any department. Essentially, we can do a carbon footprint of any activity. You can do a carbon footprint of making a cup of coffee, or sending an email, or a phone call, or purchasing new capex like capital equipment. So you can do a footprint calculation for absolutely anything. And when we start to put CO2 metrics against a carbon price, so if we say that it costs $60 dollars or euros per ton of carbon, then we can then do our calculations to say, okay, does it make sense financially for all of our employees to be traveling to a certain office to work and commuting? Or does it make sense for us to purchase a factory in this part of the world compared to that part of the world? What is the environmental impact of that decision? And when we can put that environmental impact not into figures of CO2 and global warming potential, but also in terms of monetary amounts, in terms of dollars from savings on CBAM and extra premiums, then we can start to see how that decision impacts on the bottom line companies. Because I think we have to remember that the business of business is doing business, I think somebody once said, and we cannot forget that. So essentially, finance and money will always be the lifeline, the blood that flows through a
A
company.
driving factor for
Yeah.
all of it. Yeah.
And I think we
Yeah.
can't put that to the side. I think that will always be the central focus of a company to make money. But it's about how sustainability can support that and demonstrate that and evaluate that and uphold it. So I think that's the future in terms of joining these two forces for good.
Yeah, yeah, well said. Also, it is quite important as well in terms of finding this balance of, let's say, the monetary benefits and as well as environmental benefits. I hope if we can find a way to achieve this, I would be more than glad to see that happening in the coming future days. And my last question would be on green building. building concept, where it is quite key trending concept in construction sector. Could you help us understand like EPD hub? Is it also helping, let's say, if an architect wants to complete a project under green building concept, is it enabled, or what is the data that requires for this?
Yeah, that's the driving reason why EPDs exist for BREEAM and LEED certification, for example.
Certifications. Yeah.
Yeah, DGNB in Germany. There's always going to be the national associations that provide the whole building LCA
Mm-hmm.
results, and that is what the architect is going for. So they receive a better evaluation of of the building based on its environmental impact. And the only way that the architect can design a truly green or sustainable building is by looking at each individual product that goes into the building and choosing products that will lead to the most beneficial or positive scoring in these scoring methodologies at the building level. And so what we need to move towards is having this data accessible, readable in machine readable formats that are always going to be in different formats for different countries, but we're moving towards one standardized global data format that can be read by machines, so that we have essentially data coming out of like a BIM system or a CAD system at the design level of a company, of a building, and then
Mm-hmm.
going back into the publishing of where those results being used. And so this closed loop approach is where we need to move towards a truly digitized calculation platform that enables architects to design the buildings of the future that we need. So that's the direction that we're going in. We have a long way to go. We are not
Yeah.
yet that machine readable stage, but it is
Mm-hmm.
coming.
Yeah, I hope so. We reach there soon, and we are at the end of the interview. And thank you so much for doing this and helping us understand. Maybe I think takeaway is we understand the EPD much better than what we were earlier. And at the last, we have a small round of rapid fire where you have three questions. All you have to do is just give a one word for it. So if you're ready, we'll go ahead. Sounds good, yeah.
Yeah,
So
fire.
yeah. So one sustainability buzzword you would retire forever.
Oh, green.
Green. Yeah, okay.
It's been
Yeah, I think
overused.
yeah,
I don't
because
know.
I think more or less I think it is also to do with the psychology, right? Whenever you see a word green, out of suddenly you have that inherent feeling of this is sustainable. I don't know why it happened. Was it purposeful in terms of marketing teams? I have literally zero idea on that, but yeah, it
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah, with that,
And
I see that you have got your Get Set Green logo set up quite clearly there, so I'm sorry about that. But I just have keep coming across it, especially off that greenwashing connection. So that's the background there. Yeah,
Anyway, yeah, I have an elephant and a small plant popping out of it. So just to make justice sort of not doing it out of it, yeah. So, and the second question is on what is CBAM, opportunity or a challenge for industry?
it's an opportunity. If they can respond
Okay.
to the challenge, it's an opportunity. Yeah.
Okay. One regulation every sustainability professional should understand, according to you.
I think the construction product regulation in Europe is the driving force for digital environmental impacts of products.
Okay, so a big thank you to you, Joshua, for sharing your insights on environmental data and how this can help us tackle the real climate action, right? So, if this conversation sparked a new idea or a perspective, share this episode with someone in your network who cares about sustainability, innovation, or future of manufacturing. And that's all. I am Pooja Arvi. This is Get Set Green. So, we will meet with a new episode next. Please subscribe, share and follow. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye bye.